Hello everybody, we are back and we are doing a series preview as the Eastern Conference Final preview between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers. So before we start, if you are new, please make sure to subscribe to me. If you're new to me, new to the channel, new to hockey, whatever the case may be, I'd love to have you here along the way as I try to do this as a career. So if you want to subscribe, feel free to do so. If not, no big deal. That being said, let's get into this preview, as of course you see the Carolina Hurricanes making it after beating the New York Islanders in the first round, and then of course upsetting the New Jersey Devils. I don't even know if you could say it was an upset because they were the higher seed. In the second round, Florida Panthers upset the Boston Bruins. That's an upset for sure in the first round in 7 games, before also upsetting the Toronto Maple Leafs in 5 games in the second round, winning Game 5 in overtime in Toronto. So of course, that's how they got here. Now let's talk about some storylines and how this could be impactful for this series or what to look out for. So the first one is depth over star power. And heading into this series, if you're new to hockey, you'd probably be surprised to say that the Hurricanes, the second best team in the league, have less star power, offensive potential compared to a team like the Florida Panthers, a team that just made it into the Stanley Cup playoffs. But by no means am I saying that Carolina is a bad team offensively. They can score from anywhere, but I will say they are a team that relies on shooting the puck a lot and then getting it on net to be able to get a lot of goals. And it's kind of been one of those things where the goals have tapered off a bit after the Svechnikov injury. Like I said, though, they take a lot of shots and they try to get them on net. Their shooting percentage on unblocked shots reflects that, though, with the league worst shooting percentage of 6.2%. This isn't for their entire roster for sure, but you kind of get the picture. You got to be able to see where I'm coming from, with Carolina, of course, being a team that really dominates shot possession and things like that. The good news for them is that they do have 3 lines that can score, so that's good. The bad news, though, for them with this depth versus star power thing where they have those 3 lines is that the Panthers have more star power, if you want. I'm just going to throw some names out there, and you probably know what I'm talking about. Barkov, Reinhart, Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, just to name a few, are guys that can run up the score quick, as this Florida team was able to score a lot of goals in this one. And I think for the Hurricanes, they're going to have to try to win this one defensively, throw out matchups that favor them. But at the end of the day, I think a big thing that you got to take away here is, as long as Carolina is able to go out there and just break even or be about even for this matchup with Tkachuk, stuff like that, if Tkachuk scores 11 goals when he was out on the ice and the Hurricanes score 11 goals or whatever the case is, as long as it's close, that's good, because if you're able to use your depth for yourself in Carolina and outscore them when the Stars are out on the ice, you're looking at good things happening here. And for them, I really do think that guys like Kotkaniemi, Faust, Nason, Seth Jarvis are going to be able to do their part, or have to do their part. Kotkaniemi is a guy that got paid handsomely, at least compared to what his expectations were and how things are going in Montreal. While he hasn't been averaging a lot of minutes in the playoffs, kind of like what you saw in the regular season, where he gets about 14 minutes a night, 15, somewhere around there, he's going to have to step up and do his part in this one. But while there aren't a lot of those big name stars, I do think that there's going to be some guys that are going to have to fill in and do their part, because with Florida's star power, things could get ugly quick. So we'll have to see what happens there with depth versus star power. The second storyline here is going to be who wins Carolina's blue line. And what do I mean by that? You probably know that the Panthers, like I said, are a team that are really good off the rush, but they are a team that also has to watch out for what Carolina has been able to do. So according to all 3 zones online, Carolina led the league this year in highest entry percentage denial in the league. So they've been a really good team in denying a entry into their blue zone, into their defensive end for them. And they are the team that actually allowed the fewest high danger chances against per 60 at 5-on-5. Meanwhile, the Florida Panthers were the team that had the most high danger chances for, while also finishing first in the league for high danger chances, or I should say high danger goals, 4 per 60. So we're set up for a pretty eventful series. Carolina, a team that is really good at making sure teams are effectively getting in their zone well, or at least at a high rate. And then Florida, a team that really looks to push it up the ice off the rush to try to get those, not easy goals, but those goals that have a better opportunity of going in. I think that's going to make for a really fun series here. You have guys like Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, and Carter Verhaeghe that could be part of these opportunities, but I'm thinking Anthony Duclair could really be a big factor, and this is why you have to watch out for him. He's dangerous, and I think he's underrated. He actually finished for the second most high danger passes per 60 in the whole league at full strength, so that is crazy. We're also leading the league in entries, leading to scoring chances per 65 on 5. So he's going to be kind of that underrated hidden X factor in this series. As for Carolina, they've got a lot of guys that are much more aggressive than other guys compared to league average, stuff like that, at trying to deny zone entries and being able to make sure that teams aren't getting in here. So I don't exactly know who's going to be thrown out there, especially when a guy like Duclair Kachuk's out there on the ice. But I do think that this will be a very big talking point in the series. I think while it won't be the total thing that decides this, I do think it'll be one of those things that you could look back at and say, what went wrong here? And I think that this could be it right here. For Florida, if their offense fails to score, you could be talking about, oh, they weren't really able to get off the rush like they like and be able to get those really good looks. And if Florida is able to score a bunch of goals, you could be saying, well, Carolina was not able to keep the blue line clean and they weren't able to effectively stop Florida from being able to get those injuries. So we will see here, as I do think, like I said, this is going to be a thing that correlates to who wins. But I'm looking forward to that and seeing how that goes. As for the third talking point, could this be a lower scoring series and who would benefit from this? This, in all honesty, could be a lower scoring affair. I really don't know. Florida is a team that scored with the best of them this season, and we saw what they were able to do against the Boston Bruins. Just put up a bunch of goals, but we also saw that they weren't a team that really lit up the Maple Leafs. Of course, they didn't have a lot of shots on in that series, but you look at Carolina too, like I said, a team that is really good at preventing zone injuries and a team that is really good at just limiting chances in general all around. That is going to be a big thing here. Carolina is a club that you would say maybe they'd be a little bit better off if it was lower scoring, but I also want to say that since the Svechnikov injury leading up into the second round, they averaged just about 2.7 goals per game. Not bad, but not great. And if you're a team like Carolina that maybe at times has struggled a little bit without Svech to score these goals, could this be a series you want it to be lower scoring? Yes and no. As for Florida, I would argue that with Bobrovsky being the way he is, with the second highest goal saved above average out of all goalies in the playoffs, while posting a .928 save percentage and a 7-1 record in his last 8 games played, you could argue that for Carolina it could be harder to score. As for Florida, like I said, you know all the stories with the Hurricanes being one of those teams. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. They've been one of the best defensive teams in the league for a while now. So for the Panthers, they really don't have, the luxury of getting a little bit too overextended here and thinking about, oh, if we are able to just run away with it. Because you got to remember that the Hurricanes outscored the Devils at 5-on-5, 17-10 in that second round series. And for them, they don't want to get run over at 5-on-5 because then you're relying on getting power play opportunities and hoping to click on them, and that's just something you don't want to do if the other team is mauling you at full strength. And while Florida has not been a team that you've had to worry about for a little bit with their run, got to watch out for it. But what I will say is in terms of luxury and the talent that they have, kind of with the star power that I talked about for the first talking point in this, I'm going to say that Florida would probably benefit a little bit more from this being a lower scoring series if Bob is hot, because then you would say that you would expect their stars to show up a little bit more. We will see though, because again, I do think for Carolina, they're okay playing these ugly games that get a little gritty and physical. And they're also a club that doesn't mind to, play the defensive game the way it should be, which we've seen all season. As for the final talking point here, how does the pressure impact the series? This is something that normally people, really like a lot of the data and the analytics that I throw out there, but sometimes people say, let's focus on some of the intangibles and talk about things that really don't have to deal with the numbers. So I will say this, we're talking about how will the pressure be for Florida compared to Carolina. Carolina, a club that actually has a lot of pressure onto them. I know they're a smaller market, and I know that they don't have the stars compared to some of the other markets, but I will say this, they've been a really good team for a really long time, and up until now, they had not been the team that you were hoping for. Yes, they made that conference final run back in 2019, but the 3 seasons after that, they weren't able to get back there. And again, they're a club that has shown that they can get there, and they just got back here now. But I think people are starting to look at this and say Carolina should be a team that is making a Stanley Cup Final appearance soon, or they should be a team that possibly gets there and maybe even wins a cup. And I think with Florida being here, a lot of people are saying that this is Carolina's year to go on, and despite all the injuries that they've had, go on to hopefully win the Stanley Cup for the first time in nearly 20 years. They've got quite a bit of pressure on them, despite the injuries, like I said, and all the things holding them back from being the favorite, they are still a team that is really good and will have to deal with a lot of drama if things go poorly. As for Florida, they're playing with house money. They upset the Bruins. They weren't expected to get past the first round. They upset the Maple Leafs. They really weren't expected to get out of the second round. Why not go for it again and really shock the world by making it to the Stanley Cup Final for just the second time in franchise history and the first time in over 25 years? Might actually be, it'd be 26 years. I think the last time that they made it here. They really don't have a lot of pressure on them. They know that they aren't supposed to be here after being the President's Trophy winners last year. Of course, they did win, pretty well at points this season. They got hot when they needed to, but nobody expects them to be there in the Stanley Cup Final, so they just don't really have a lot of pressure. They seem to thrive in this market or in this environment. Sam Bennett has been a guy that has really just got under people's skin. Toronto fans, I apologize. And then Matthew Tkachuk, he is a guy that really gets under people's skin as well. So I think for them in this regard, the Panthers are better suited to deal with the pressure, I guess if you want to say. But having said all these things, who am I going to be picking to head to the Stanley Cup Final and in how many games? So I'm going to be picking the Carolina Hurricanes in 7 games. While I do think that this is a series I actually would expect Florida to win more compared to Boston in Toronto, I will say I am not going to discredit what Carolina did while dealing with injuries against a very good New Jersey Devils team. And the fact that they were able to dominate them at 5-on-5 with those goals, and if they can click on the power play, that's going to be big for them. Bobrovsky, if he's hot, this is going to be a game changer in the series and really be an advantage for the Panthers. But at the same time, with Bob, we've seen some inconsistency since he has arrived in Florida. He looks like he's been good, but of course he's had some time off as well, so we should expect a fun series in this one. And I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers made it on to the Stanley Cup Final, but I am going to go against them again. We'll see if they're the Montreal Canadiens of the other season, where we saw the Habs be a team that I didn't pick in the playoffs at all, and they could make me 0 for 3 after this, but we are going to see. Anyway, who are you picking in this series and in how many games? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Also, I apologize if this video seems rushed. I'm kind of on a time crunch here, and I need the video to go out as well. Just a very busy day, and so I got back home late. So anyway, everybody, please make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night, and you go off hockey all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.